Before coming here, I started a series entitled Personalities from Canto 1 Srimad Bhagavatam. And so far, this is as far as we've gotten. So the other Shukadeva Swami and Vyasa and Narada Muni, and now Krsna-dvaipayana Vyasa. And we'll start hearing some of the descriptions of the various names by which Sri Krsna-dvaipayana Vyasa is known. Badarayana, Krishna, Krsna-dvaipayana. There's an explanation for each of these. Here's the explanation for each of these. Krsna-dvaipayana Vyasa, that's the opening slide. Since his complexion was dark, he was called Krishna, which means dark. Since he was born on an island, he was called Dvaipayana, from the word Dvipa, which means island. Krsna-dvaipayana would later be known as Veda Vyasa, because he split the Vedas into 4 divisions or 4 books. Vyasa also means diameter in Vedic mathematics. It passes through the center of a circle, divides a circle into 2 segments. That's called the Vyasa. Similarly, Vyasa divided the Vedas, and therefore keeping Krishna at the center, Veda Vyasa. He is called Badarayana because he performed his sadhana in Badarikashram. He is called Satyavati Sutta, as his mother was Satyavati. He is called Parashayatmaja because he is born from Parashara Muni. There's a nice painting. There he is up in the mountains of the Himalayas with books that he didn't write. But in any case, he compiled the Vedas in his ashram. There's a whole series of slides now on a response to this question. And before we go down the series of slides, the answer is, in different yugas, he's Jiva, and in other yugas, he's Vishnu Tattva. Jiva Tattva, Vishnu Tattva. Commonly, when the term Shakti Avatar is used, it means a Jiva that's empowered. Here's a verse from Madhya Lila. This is description in Sanatan Goswami's instructions, Sanatana Shiksha. The conditioned soul cannot revive his Krishna consciousness by his own effort, but out of causeless mercy, Lord Krishna compiled Vedic literature and it supplements the Puranas. Prabhupada's purport. Vyasadeva is a Shakti avatar of Lord Krishna. He has very kindly presented these literatures to awaken the conditioned soul to his senses. So in this case, Shakti avatar indicates in the Jiva category. However, in Lagu Bhagavatamrita, Vishnu Tattva is indicated from Vishnu Purana. We'll see this reference a few times. Know that Krsna-dvaipayana Vyasa is Lord Narayana, who other than the lotus-eyed Supreme Lord could have written Mahabharata. In Tattva Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami indicates some of both. Parashara Muni, saying this reference from Vishnu Purana, who explains that in every Divya Yug, meaning the cycle of 4 years, there's a Divya Yug, Usually, a different jiva soul is empowered as a Shaktivesh avatar to take the position of Vyasa, the divider of the Vedas. However, in this present Divya Yuga, Lord Narayana himself appears as Vyasadeva, as Vyasa. Therefore, Vishnu Purana declares that the present Vyasa is known as Krsna-dvaipayana Vyasa, for he is Lord Narayana himself and not an ordinary Shaktivesh avatar Vyasa. Who else on this earth could be the author? So, in each of the manus, 14 manus, there's 71 Divya Yugas. And in this particular of the 71 Divya Yugas, he is Vishnu Tattva, otherwise Jiva Tattva. He's Trikalagya, who knows past, present, and future. In the 28th Maha Yuga, or Divya Yuga, during the reign of our current Vaivasvata Manu, Krsna-dvaipayana Vyasa is holding the post of Veda Vyasa. That's Jiva Goswami in his Tattva Sandarbha. Later in Tattva Sandarbha, he quotes Skanda Purana. Narayana, the personality of Godhead, and the greatest of mystics, descended to the earth as the son of Parashara in the womb of Satyavati. In the form of Lord Hari himself, he restored the neglected Vedas. Now, another reference is Rupa Goswami, who's the author of Laghu Bhagavatamrita. And this reference, entitled Leela Avatars, I think that's a little more technical. In the scriptures, it is said that Apa Taratma Muni, Apa Taratma Muni became Dvaipayana Vyasa. Is Vyasa a jiva who attained Sayuja Mukti, or he is an Angsa avatar of Lord Vishnu? Some say he is an Angsa avatar. This is Laghu Bhagavatamrita. However, Srila Rupa Goswami later lists Vyasadeva among other Prabhava avatars of the Lord and thus describes him as Vishnu Tattva. There's the scriptural reference at the bottom. Because there's a section in Laghu Bhagavatamrita has as its central topic the avatars and descriptions of those avatars. So in one section, there's this distinction being made by the Prabhava and the Vaibhava avatars. It's technical, but here we go. Because the question that we're responding to is, which category is he, Jiva or Vishnu Tattva? With the eyes of Scripture, the Prabhava avatars are seen to be of two kinds. The first kind is briefly manifested and not very famous. Among them are Mohini, Hamsa, and the Yuga avatars beginning with Shukla. The second kind are authors of scriptures. Generally, they are great sages. Among them are Dhanvantari, Rishabha, Vyasa, Dattatreya, and Kapila. So notice this is Laghu Bhagavatamrita from the sections 46, 47. A subtext, Prabhupada makes reference to this way. Shaktivesh avatars are sometimes also listed as Prabhava manifestations, and here's the reference. Among the other Prabhavas, remember that's the ones that are less famous and they're manifest briefly, who are Not very famous according to the material estimation. Dhanvantari Rishabh Vyasa is included by Srila Prabhupada in that list. The Vilasa forms are 6 in number. Incarnations are of 2 varieties, namely Shaktiavesh and Anksavesh. These incarnations also come within the category of Prabhava and Vaibhava manifestations. I've included things that are technical, and it's not so important if you've understood all the technical. The main message is sometimes and sometimes. The main message is that in the appearance in this Vaivasvata Manu period, the Vyasa that we know, he's Narayana or Vishnu Tattva, and otherwise not. Here's another nice painting of Vyasadeva compiling the Vedas. Here in different yugas, so in each day of Brahma, 1,000 yuga cycles, we all know, and then you divide those 1,000 yuga cycles into 14 manus, and it comes to around 71 yuga cycles. We're in the reign of Manu number 7, Vaivasvata Manu. And our current part of Vaivasvata Manu's period is the 28th Divya Yuga or Yuga cycle out of 71. So as you see at the bottom, that's where we are. It's towards the end of Kali Yuga, or more than halfway through Kali Yuga. And then there's the other yugas in the duration of one Manu. Lord Krishna appears once in the day of Brahma at the close of the Dwapara Yuga of the 28th Divya Yuga, and then Lord Chaitanya appears in the Kali Yuga of that same Divya Yuga. This is Adilila Chaitanya Charitamrita. Vyasadeva appears in every Mahayuga, or the 4 cycles of 4 yugas. So here's a breakdown from Vishnu Purana. The very first of the period appearances of Vyas is the first cycle of the 4 yugas, and Lord Brahma himself appears as Vyas. The second, Prajapati or Manu, and the 24th, when Ramachandra appears, it's Valmiki. And then following this one, it's the son of Dronacharya or Droni. That's Ashwatthama. He's a bad guy, right? But he gets purified and he becomes Vyas. Pretty amazing, huh? From Vishnu Purana. So here's a chart that's a little difficult to follow because the printing is so small. But where the circle is at the bottom, it indicates where Vyasadeva is indicated. Now, Vyasadeva, generally speaking, as we heard, it's in the category, he is in the category of a Shaktiavesh avatar. Generally, out of the 71 Divya Yugas during our particular Manu, he is Jiva, Shaktivesh avatar, Jiva. Anyway, so that's Vyasadeva down there in different categories of avatars. In our line, he is a direct disciple of Narada Muni and the direct spiritual master of Madhvacharya, so his role is very important. Now, over in this chart, it shows Krishna Krsna-dvaipayana Vyasa as the son of Parashamuni and Satyavati. We're going to hear more about how that happened. Parashamuni and Satyavati. And Krsna-dvaipayana Vyasa was their son. Then over to the left, Vitika was his wife, and produced from Vitika was Shukadeva Goswami. We'll hear more about that also. And go over to the other side. Upa Chari Vasu. See at the top? Upa Chari Vasu and Matsya Garbha. Well, guess what? There's two different stories. We're going to hear both of those two different stories. Matsya Garbha, according to 9th canto, chapter 22, Matsya Garbha was the wife, was a fisher woman. And Vyasa had union with a fisher woman, and, Upachari Vasu had union with a fisher woman, and Vyasa Satyavati was born. There's another that's we'll get there. But Matsyagarbha was another explanation that's in Mahabharata and some other references we'll see. A Apsara was cursed to become a fish, and the fish swallowed the semen of Upachara Vasu, and there was a female child, a male and a female child, in the body of the fish. It's a long story. We'll get there. So that Matsya Garbha is a different mother, female, but a different mother of Satyavati, and the father of Satyavati is Upachara Vasu. Upi, Upachari Vasu. Okay. So let's go back. Yeah. Shukadeva Goswami remained in the womb of his mother for 16 years. There are some scriptural references that indicate 12 years. Mostly it's 16 years. And at the end of 16 years, poor mother, Vyasadeva was trying to coax the child in the womb of his mother to come out. Poor mother, come on out. And he refused because he didn't want to be influenced by Maya. That's a good reason. And so, and he didn't accept Vyasa's word because you're a householder, you're attached to your wife, and so I don't trust your word. It doesn't say how that communication took place, but that's the indication. So Vyasadeva left and went all the way to Dwarka, appealed to Krishna for help. Krishna came all the way back, as the painting shows, and Krishna promised the child in the womb that he wouldn't be influenced by Maya. So the child came out. Good news for mother, at least. And immediately he left home and became acted in the role of a traveling mendicant, Paribhajakacharya. Then it gets a little complicated. Is, according to 9th canto, chapter 21, in the purport, there's a reference from Brahma Vaivarta Purana, and Krama Sandarbha quotes it, that there's another Sukha. We're speaking about Vyasadeva, but it's the son of Vyasadeva Sukha. So there's a Sukha described in Canto 9, Chapter 21, where a Sukha became married. But the explanation given is it's an expansion of Sukha number 1, who became Sukha number 2. And he got married. And then the explanation is it's a different kalpa than our present kalpa. So relax a little bit. But it's a historical reference that's made sometimes. So the mother of Vyasa is Satyavati. Now, in that same reference, Canto 9, Chapter 21, in the purport, Prabhupada very clearly says, I just went over a bunch of times, Satyavati was actually the daughter of Uparichara, there we go, Uparichara Vasu, conceived in the womb of a fisherwoman, Machigarbha, known as Machigarbha. Later, Satyavati was raised by a fisherman. That's the Srila Prabhupada's statement in the Bhagavatam. And then there's this additional statement that's from Mahabharata, and one grand disciple of Srinivasacharya, his name is given here, he wrote extensively on various avatars, one of them being Vyasa. And he just repeats the essential narration that's found in Mahabharata. And the essential narration that's in Mahabharata goes like this. Upari Charavasu was being honored by Indra. And one of the ways that Indra honored him was he gave him a chariot that could fly in the sky. So he did that a lot. There was a Vasu, and he was then given the name Upari Chara because he could travel here and there freely. And he was very attached to his wife. She's very beautiful, this and that. And they were both attached to each other. On one fine day, Uparichara, was traveling in the forest. He's a king, and he was in the forest. And when he was in the forest, he saw two animals, male and female, mating, and he became sexually excited. And when he became sexually excited, he discharged semen. But he was thinking, oh, my good wife. This is from Mahabharata. My good wife, the semen should be preserved for her so that she can conceive a child. So one version says a hawk, another version says a falcon, which is maybe a kind of a hawk. And he entrusted the semen on a leaf to carry this to my wife. So the obedient hawk or falcon was flying in the sky, and he was attacked by another bird. And as they were passing over the Jamuna River, the leaf fell. And when the leaf fell, the semen fell. And a fish, seeing the semen, swallowed the semen. A little complicated. And it just gets more complicated. The female fish, was an apsara who had been cursed by a brahmana to fall and become a fish. But she became a fish in the Jamuna River, so it wasn't so bad. And then the fish swallowed the semen. And so after some time, it was both a male and a female child that developed in that fish. So the fish, different than the fisherwoman, was given the name Matsyagarbha. So the Apsara's name, Adrika. And after some time, someone caught the fish in the river Jamuna. And when they took the fish home and opened up the fish, lo and behold, there's a male and a female child inside. Pretty amazing. And so they understood that the Uparichara Vasu had something to do with this. So the male child was given to the father, but the female child smelled like a fish. And so the female child that smelled like a fish was given to the king of the fishermen. A little complicated, huh? So she then became the daughter of the foster father, Dasaraj, a chieftain of the fishing community. And so later she became Satyavati, but she right away became known as Matsyagandha because she smelled fishy. Matsyagandha. And her father, the chieftain of the fishing community, thought, a very nice service from my daughter, or foster daughter, stepdaughter, adopted daughter, would be to carry people back and forth across the river. Because it may happen, and sure enough, it did happen, she may become the boat ferry person for some auspicious and elevated person. The auspicious person may give her some blessing, and that may be good for her. So that was the reason why he arranged for that, the profession of being a boatman. Well, sure enough, one fine day, Parashara Muni was wanting to cross the river Jamuna. And as she accepted, he was in the boat, they're crossing the river, and Parashara Muni did some calculations. There's different versions, but one of the versions that makes a lot of sense to me, he was doing some astrological calculation, and his calculation was that an incarnation of the personality of Godhead would soon appear. So he turned to Satyavati and told her and asked her, would you like to be the mother? And she was like not so sure about this one. So she had some hesitation. Look, we're crossing the river, and how's this going to work? I'm not married, and you're not my husband, and how's this going to work? So to demonstrate his power, he withdrew her fishy smell and made her nice smelling, according to some of the historical records. She smelled like musk, and he gave her a name, Yojana Gandha, instead of Matsya Gandha, that the fragrance of her body would go for 1 yojana, 8 miles. So she was impressed. This is Parashara Muni's a gifted person. But still, how is this going to work? So he gave her, before she agreed, he gave her 2 benedictions. Don't worry, your virginity won't be violated. He didn't explain how, but you'll bear the son. So the mother was needed. You'll bear the son, but your virginity won't be damaged or harmed. And the son that was born, that a son that will be born of you will become a king. She didn't say this son, just a son of yours will become king. So she took a deep breath and she looked at Parashara Muni and said, okay. And so he created an island by his mystic power, and he concealed their union with one another by a dense fog. And at once a male child was born. Immediately the male child became an adult. And immediately the adult male child said, see you later, Mom. If you ever need me, just call my name and I'll be there. There's have songs like that, right? So he left and he went to the Himalayas to engage in his austerities. Just like that. And she went back home and said, "Hey, Dad, guess what happened today?" And he accepted everything that she said. One of the main reasons why the fishy smell was gone. And this fragrant smell replaced the fishy smell. So what he accepted, that what was told to her by Parashara would happen, that mainly she would have a son who would become the king. So he was very protective of his daughter now, because I'm going to be the father of a king, and my daughter is the mother of the king, or father-in-law of the king. Complicated story, but that's, the mother, Satyavati, and how it was that Vyasa became the daughter of Satyavati. Vyasa became the son of Satyavati. So he then went to the Himalayas, and this is from Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, where it is said, Sutta said, on the western bank of the river Saraswati, which is intimately related with the Vedas, there's a cottage for meditation at Samya Prasa, which enlivens the transcendental activities of the sages, and that's where he made his ashram. Prabhupada writes, for spiritual advancement of knowledge, a suitable place and atmosphere are definitely required. The place on the western bank of the Saraswati is especially suitable for this purpose, and there is the ashram of Vyasadeva at Samya Prasa. Still, the Vyasadeva was a householder, yet his residential place is called an ashram. So that's where he resided, and then the reason for his appearance, there's several verses. This is from Bhagavad Gita, the first one. Whenever there's decline in religious practice or descend Bharata, any predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Yada yada hi dharmasya. Prabhupada writes, purport, sometimes he descends personally, and sometimes he sends his bona fide representative in the form of his son or servant, or he himself in some disguised form. So in this particular yuga cycle, it's Narayana himself, according to scriptural reference. Here's Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1. This is the symptoms of this age of Kali. You recognize. Let's say the verse. Prayena payushakshabhya kalavasmin yuge jana mandaksa manda matayo mandabhagya hupadruta. O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, men almost always have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. So there was a need to correct that situation, and there Vyasa was the one to make that correction of that situation. 12th canto, Shukadeva Goswami said, then, O king, religion, truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance, mercy, duration of life, physical strength, and memory will all diminish day by day because of the powerful influence of the age of Kali. So the need was there to take the sound vibration form and make it a written form. So this is Vyasadeva. This is why he did what he did. Jiva Goswami describes in Tattva Sandarbha, the first of the Sandarbhas, in the Pramanakanda section of Tattva Sandarbha. He indicates three reasons. Here's the first of the three reasons. Why Vyasadeva made it easier for people in this age of Brahmanas, in the age of Kali, to comprehend the Vedas, because otherwise it's not easy. Originally, there was one Veda, which was like a treasure chest full of jewels. In the previous yugas, Brahmanas knew what was in the treasure chest, what mantras and tantras they can draw from and where. Vyasa took the one treasure chest and divided into 4 treasure chests so that Brahmanas could draw from any one of the 4. Vedas are like a kalpavriksha. Whatever one desires, one can have from them. So, therefore, one became, to make it easier for the Brahmanas. He wrote the Smriti section, which are as Vedic as the Shrutis. Now, this is just extracting this rather long section where he explains the Shrutis are as Vedic as the Smritis. Excuse me. The Smritis are as Vedic as the Shrutis. And there's an explanation, because here's the explanation. There were a number of verses that made up the Shrutis. And then he explains, and there were some remaining verses. You know, if you divide 4 into 30. You good at math? What's 4 into 30? 30 divided by 4. What's it come to? 7.5, right? Because it's uneven. So there's some balance. 7 plus some balance. So the Vedas, when they were divided, there was 4 Vedas plus, and then the balance became the Smritis. As Vedic as the Vedas, because they're Vedic. But the language was different. This is his explanation. The language was different, and the language helped understand the 4, or excuse me, the 4 Vedas, and then the Upanishad sections, etc., etc. But they're as Vedic as what they were divided, what they were when they were in their previous form. He compiled the Mahabharata, 18 Puranas and Upa-Puranas, and wrote the Brahma Sutra, or Vedanta Sutra, to explain. Nice. Very clear. Jiva Goswami is always very clear. Here's a chart amongst many charts. You'll see a few charts. Now, at the top, there's Vedic scriptures. And then the Vedic scriptures have these 2 divisions, Shrutis and Smritis. And then the Shrutis are over there on the left, and the primary Vedas, the Upa-Vedas, and the Vedangas. And then the Smritis have their different sections. So we're not going to go through all of that, but you can see there's lots of boxes. He made divisions not just into those 4, but other examples to make it easier to understand the Vedas. Let's look at the far right. The far right, it says the Sad Darshans, or that means 6. And in the divisions, the Mimamsa and Nyaya are 2. And then at the bottom box, right towards the center, Vedanta and Srimad Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavatam is a commentary on Vedanta. So those are part of the 6 darshans that are as Vedic as the rest of the Vedas. The great rishis, like Vyasa, had no business putting some imaginary stories in the Vedic literatures. They didn't insert fiction. They're histories. And to understand the histories can have its challenges. But if understood properly from the right source, then it helps understand the whole picture of the Vedas through stories, which is the idea. Isn't it true that it's sometimes easier to understand something by an example rather than to understand the principle? So you state a principle and you say, for example, Then you give 10 for examples. And then you go back to what the principle is. Now do you understand the principle? It's easier to understand the principle through examples. So the histories, itihasas, there's differences between the two, but it's to help understand the Vedas, the principles within the Vedas. And embedded within the histories, there's the principle. So it's like when reading, there's this common thing said about Ramayana. At the top is rasa. And if you don't understand something in scripture, look at it through the lens of rasa, and it may make it easier to understand it. Often it's easier to understand. So there's the storyline, or the history. Then there's truths or tattvas layered on top of. There's scriptural principles to live by, dharma, and then there's rasa, and it is all layered in within a narration. And somebody may be more focused on this or that or the other, but this is particularly in the case of Ramayana because it's analyzed a lot in that way. Within one particular narration, there are many things. And a commentator may emphasize this thing, or another may, same passage, may emphasize that thing. But it's all there. It's a very interesting way of composition. But again, the composition isn't fiction composition, it's history. The life of Lord Ramachandra isn't fiction. Valmiki Ramayana is not fiction. It's the history of Lord Ramachandra. And then how to unpack it or how to understand it, these different layers. But no fiction. So when he divided the Vedas, he entrusted different parts of the Vedas to different disciples. Here's some of the list of the 4 Vedas, who he entrusted them to. Ramaharshan is number 5. He entrusted the Puranas. And Ramaharshan was the father of Sutta Goswami. So he later became a speaker of the Bhagavatam. Sanjaya, the speaker of to Dhritarashtra, who was Vyasadev's disciple. Vyasadeva trained him so that he could see and hear things from a distant place, even he wasn't present, because he was able to narrate what was going on the battlefield to Dhritarashtra, like simultaneous broadcast without computers, because he had that skill, he had that gift from Vyasa. Shukadeva, of course, was one of his students or disciples. This is now taken directly from 9th Canto Bhagavatam, chapter 22. The incarnation of Godhead, Vedavyas, rejecting his disciples, headed by Pila, instructed Srimad Bhagavatam to me, because I was free from all material desires. So Shukadeva, in the earlier sections, Shukadeva was one of the personalities who we spoke about. He was already Brahman realized. What was one of the things, I'm in the womb and I'm not coming out because there's Maya out there. It was Brahman realized. He had no affinity for anything material. He had aversion for things material. But upon Krishna's promise, he came out. Now, here's a nice painting. This shows Narada Muni zooming in to Valmiki's ashram, way up in the Himalayas. And when paying a visit to his disciple, he detected, Narada said, "You have not actually brought, you look despondent. You just did fantastic work. You compiled all the Vedas, etc. You're not happy. What's wrong?" And Vyasa said, I don't know what's wrong, but I think you know what's wrong. So then here's Narada saying what's wrong. You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy, which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord, is considered worthless. And then, although, great sage, you have very broadly described the four principles, beginning with Dharma, then Artha, Kama, Moksha, you haven't sufficiently glorified the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. So Canto 1, Chapter 5, he told them what to do. That's why, then what to do. Sit in trance of meditation. You know how to do that. And you'll have a realization. And with that realization, it should be the basis. In Samadhi should be the basis of your next compilation. That's commentary in Vedanta Sutra or Srimad Bhagavatam. So then he compiled Srimad Bhagavatam. And one of his disciples was Sanjaya, and Sanjaya was a disciple of Vyasadeva. Here is directly written in the purport 1.1 Bhagavad Gita. Sanjaya was a student of Vyasa, and therefore, by the mercy of Vyasa, Sanjaya was able to envision the battlefield of Kurukshetra even while he was in the room of Dhritarashtra. So Vyasa is the spiritual master of Sanjaya. Then in chapter 18, Bhagavad Gita, by the mercy of Vyasa, I have heard these most confidential talks directly from the master of all mysticism, Krishna, who was speaking personally to Arjuna. So Sanjaya is narrating. Vyasa was the spiritual master of Sanjaya, and Sanjaya admits that it was by Vyasa's mercy that he could understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he was gifted in many ways, and one of them was to understand the personality of Godhead by the mercy of Vyasa. In addition to in Mahabharata, there's a very interesting section towards the end, after the battlefield of Kurukshetra is complete, and the sons of Dhritarashtra are all destroyed. There's Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, bereft of his pipe dreams that his sons would rule the world. But advised in so many ways again and again, he went ahead anyways, or Duryodhana went ahead anyways, and they were all wiped out. And Krishna said they would be wiped out, but Duryodhana was obstinate and Dhritarashtra was silent, and they were wiped out. So the blind father is still living. And some years passed, and he realized, he realized by the help of Vidura. It's a detail. It's a nice detail. Meanwhile, Vidura was on pilgrimage. And while he was on pilgrimage, one of the things that happened was he had association of Maitreya, Canto 4 Bhagavatam. And after hearing everything from Maitreya, he made a beeline back for Hastinapur. And his first order of business when he got back to Hastinapur was to get together with his elder brother and let him have it. You're this, and you're that, and you're the other thing. You're foolish. Give up this foolishness. Leave. Go to the North Country. Detach yourself from this dream that didn't happen and caused so much misery for others as well as yourself. So he compelled him out the door. But he's a blind fellow. So Dhritarashtra, went with Sanjaya, his eyes. So Sanjaya went with Dhritarashtra, and Kunti went with Gandhari because she was blindfolded. She had eyes, but she was blindfolded. So Kunti went with them. The four of them went. Isn't that interesting? I found it interesting. And then for one section of this history says for 15 years they were living in the forest, engaged in austerities to purify themselves, and uh, there was a forest fire. And when there's a forest fire, what to do, what to do, what to do? Sanjaya asked Dhritarashtra what to do because he's very loyal. And he said, this forest fire is for us. It's not for you. You should leave immediately. That's my instruction. Leave immediately. Save your life. Go. So Sanjaya left, according to Mahabharata. And then the three of them died in the fire. And of course, different destinations. From chapter 18, Bhagavad Gita purport, it appears that Sanjaya also, by the grace of Vyasa, could see the universal form of Krishna exhibited to Arjuna, because he describes it. It is, of course, said that Lord Krishna had never exhibited such a form before. It was exhibited to Arjuna only, yet some great devotees could also see the universal form of Krishna when it was shown to Arjuna, and Vyasa was one of them. He is, and so was Sanjaya. He is one of the great devotees of the Lord. He is considered to be a powerful incarnation of Krishna. Vyasa disclosed this to his disciple Sanjaya, who remembered that wonderful form of Krishna exhibited to Arjuna and enjoyed it repeatedly. Prabhupada's purport. Interesting, yes? So here's some references in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna speaks about Vyasa. Of the descendants of Vrishni, I am Vasudeva. And of the Pandavas, I am Arjuna. Of the sages, I am Vyasa. And among great thinkers, I am Ushana. Opulences of the Absolute, chapter 10. Bhagavatam, this is Uddhava Gita. Among sages, I am the Satya Yuga. Ages, I am the Satya Yuga, the age of truth. And among the sages, I am Devala and Asita. Among those who have divided the Vedas, I am Krsna-dvaipayana Vyasa. And among learned scholars, I am Shukracharya, knower of spiritual science. Interesting, Shukracharya. He was a puzzling personality, huh? He was this, and he was that, and he was the other thing. But knower of spiritual science. Madhvacharya met Vyasa. This is in his history of his life. Madhvacharya wrote a commentary on Brahma Sutra. He wanted to confirm everything with Vyasa, so he went to visit Vyasa. When he went to Uttar Badri, he was traveling with one disciple named Satyatirtha. He met Vyasadeva, who confirmed his Brahma Sutra commentary and gave him further elaborate teachings. Before he went, he fasted for 48 days. Mona Vrata. We do that for one day during our japa retreats. You're supposed to. 48 days. And then he went. On his second visit, he received a Shalagram Shila from Vyasadeva. After this, he summarized Mahabharata. So this is a little bit of chronology, but Vyasadeva being his spiritual master. Now, this is a little delicate. I had some discussions, but have you ever thought, how does it go? You know, it's Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. Then it goes back up to Satya Yuga. How does it go way back up to Satya Yuga after it's, the end of Kali Yuga? It's a good question. You've thought of that question? Just like a whirlpool. Down, 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 down. Then all of a sudden it's up again. How does it go back up again? Well, Vyas has something to do with because he's residing in Uttar Badri. And where's this? It's higher dimensional space, whatever that is. Higher dimension. Humans don't have access to where Vyas is. And he's not alone, there's other super excellent persons with him in this Uttar Badri. It's described as places like Vaikuntha, but it's still in the material world, but like Vaikuntha. So the Saptarishis are the principal persons who take responsibility or take up the service of lifting the quality at the end of Kali Yuga, lifting it back to Satya Yuga standards. And Vyasadeva also participates with them, perhaps gives guidance, doesn't say any detail of how they do that. But the Saptarishis have an important role, and Vyasa assisting role also. In Chaitanya Lila, since Chaitanya is Krishna himself, who is the Vyasa in Gaura Lila? There he is, Vyasa Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. According to Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, Srila Vyasadeva described the pastimes of Krishna in the Bhagavatam. The Vyasadeva of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya was Vrindavan Das. And Bhaktisiddhanta's commentary, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur was an incarnation of Vyasadeva, and a friendly cowherd boy named Kusamapida in Krishna Lila. It's not like there are two souls inside one body, but an aspect of Kusamapida, he had that mood, the cowherd boy mood. And he was the author of Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur, the son of Srinivas Acharya, or Srinivas Thakur's. It's son of Srinivas Thakur's niece, Narayani. That's what Bhaktisiddhanta writes. In the future, for Gaura Lila, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mangala, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has stated in many places the factual truth that in the future Vyasadeva will describe the Lord's pastimes elaborately, meaning this wasn't elaborate, it was, summary. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that these statements indicate that in the future other representatives of Vyasadeva will elaborately describe Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. The purport is that any pure devotee in the disciplic succession who describes the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is confirmed to be a representative of. We're almost done. Vyas, when we have our the appearance days of our acharyas, we call it Vyasa Puja. The speaker of the Bhagavatam is given the elevated seat of the speaker of respect called Vyasasana, the seat of Vyas. Vyasa means guru because he's our original guru. When a spiritual master's birthday is observed, it is called Vyasa Puja. This Vyasa Puja means a spiritual master is representative of Vyasa. From Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila. Nityananda then arranged to offer Vyasa Puja, or worship of the spiritual master, to Lord Gaurasundara. So what did Lord Gaurasundara do? He picked up a plow and behaved like he was Lord Nityananda. and roared here and there in ecstasy in the mood of Nityananda, indicating indirectly Nityananda is the original spiritual master. You're honoring me as spiritual master, but it's Nityananda, he's the original spiritual master. Finally, there's a place, you can see the map with that red circle around it, and it's in the autonomous region. Well, it's neither here nor there. Under China's rule, apparently. Earlier, Mana was called the last Indian village, or the first Indian village. It's on the border of Tibet and the autonomous region. It's China. It's this far away, 336 miles from New Delhi by road, 4 kilometers northwest of Badrinath. Who has been to Badrinath? Someday. Badrinath. Better hurry up. Those of you that are senior citizens back there, you got to get up there before it's too late. Anyway, it's a sacred place. It's a very special place. It's where the cave of Vyasa is. You can see that sign. It's in both Hindi and in English. First Indian village. That the big banner says. First Indian village. There's the village. There's the mountains. And there's the hills. Oops, on the right side. Interesting village, huh? And here's the cave. See the yellow circle? The gufa or cave. There's the entrance to that cave. It's 1.1 Bhagavatam listed here. Satyam Param Dhimahi. That's what's on that sign. Below the sign that's circled in yellow. Satyam Param Dhimahi. It's Bhagavatam. Can someone that reads Hindi confirm that's what it says? That's what it says. So here is on the wall of this big column there on the left, Satyam Param Dhimahi, Vyasa's writing, and then here's his cave. Now this is in English. The holy cave that's so many years old, about a year old. And in the year 2022, they made this nice, what's pictured on the left is layers and layers and layers of rock. And they don't say that's Vyasa's writing. It says, they say it's commemorating or it memorializes, it reminds one of the extensive writings of Vyasa, the way the layers of that mountain on the left side. And the right side is the cave. You see somebody walking into the cave. And here's the last slide. This is the inside of the cave. There's the pujari, and he's happy to receive donations from people that come to see the cave. And from left to right, the taller Murti on the far left, that's a Vishnu Murti. Then there's Vyasadeva, and then Shukadev Goswami next to him, and then Vallabhacharya, because it is said that Vallabhacharya, like Madhvacharya, he also visited Vyasadeva in Badrinath. And so apparently it's Vallabhacharya's followers that made this, configuration of what's on the altar. And there's, of course, Vyasa giving his benediction and the pujari receiving his donations. So that's the plan for these evening programs, is covering topics about personalities from Canto 1 Srimad Bhagavatam. So we spent the little while, discussing a number of topics about Vyasadeva, Krsna-dvaipayana Vyasa, and is he Vishnu Tattva or is he Jiva Tattva, and different yuga cycles. He's different. His appearance is different, but important. In each of the 4 yuga cycles, he does his compilation of the Vedas. The ages become degraded, and he does what's needed, and different personalities are taking that service. Except in our present 28th yuga cycle, it's Krishna himself, who appears as the son of Satyavati. Yes, keep going. You're, yeah.
It was wonderful. You clarified a lot about
You were very attentive too.
Vyasa.
Compliments to attentive young students.
It's all your blessings. So, you mentioned that how Shri Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa he divided the one Veda, Rig Veda, into 4 Vedas, and in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's described that how Brahma's 4 when Brahma was born and Krishna gave the instructions to Brahma and then Brahma started creating, it's described that Brahma had 4 heads.
Yes.
And from those 4 heads came the 4 Vedas.
Yeah.
So, but Vyasadeva came, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam's flow, Vyasadeva came after.
Yeah, he definitely came after.
He came after Brahma. Yeah. So the divisions was already done. So how did Vyasadeva?
You're a fantastic question.
Thank you very much.
So let's go back. Let's go back. In the first of the, because Vyasa comes in every one of the Chatur Yuga cycle, the 4 Yuga cycles. You remember who the first one was? Swayambhu. Now, are there ones after? Yes. So was it already done? Yes. Because he did it. And then another Yuga cycle, and then Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, the first of the 14 Manus, did. And then. So it was done again and again and again. Yes, it was done the first time, then it was done again and again and again. Yeah. By the way, in addition to complimenting your attentive listening, the way that you responded to that was really nice. It didn't stick. You deflected it, all by your mercy. Very, very good. Okay, Hare Krishna. You have something.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Actually, I was about to ask the same question.
Yeah.
And but I think today what you present, the viewpoint from Jiva Goswami about what is the 3 principal things that Vyasadeva do when he is dividing the Vedas, I think that
make it easier, right?
Helps understand what is the situation here, because the Vedas is already appeared as 4 Vedas, and still some further works need to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's perhaps is more like you have the Smriti part and the other parts that helps the readers understand the Vedas.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I also have some questions, additional questions, primarily related to the I think maybe it's the second or the third slides when we talk about give an overview of Vyasa. And I think one of the name is Badarayana. Yeah, Badarayana. And I I quickly look up that word Badara. Its meaning is jujube tree.
Is what?
Jujube tree. Jujube.
Duty.
Jujube. Jujube.
Do to be true. Oh, okay.
Chinese state.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering how that came into his name. How?
Well, I don't know, but I can guess. But you can guess too. But I don't know that there's a relationship between the name where the ashram was and the name of the tree. So the name of the ashram and the name of the tree bear some resemblance, at least the root term, and he resided there, so therefore he's known as Badarayana. The name of the place has something to do with the tree, the type of tree.
Chinese date tree.
That's what it is? A Chinese date tree?
Yeah.
No kidding. Okay.
And I think the other thing I'm trying to say is I think I just want to clarify that my understanding is correct. We talked about the Vyasa Deva is a post, and
Yes.
every yuga cycle there's a new Vyasa come in, and does it like always appear towards like the end of Dwapar Yuga and at the beginning of Kali Yuga?
Yeah. That's my understanding, yes. Now, back to the first question, his question, which was your question. That's at the very, very, very beginning of creation. So it's not at the end of Dwapar Yuga before Kali Yuga. Yeah. But it's the very, very, very beginning. So he did it at the very beginning because it was needed at the very beginning. That's why he did it. A similar but different explanation can be that while he manifested the function of Vyasa is to divide the one Veda into four, there are four natural divisions. It's just like this example that Jiva Goswami gives in Tatra Sandarbha. It's like a box of jewels, and it's one large box of jewels. That's the one Veda. And Brahmanas, they knew what jewels or what mantras and tantras to draw from the jewel box because they were very elevated personalities. But you have to have the jewel box. So Brahma, the original person, manifested the all four as one in one box or one Veda from his four mouths. And that became using the metaphor, the jewel box. And then a second explanation beside the one that I gave this young man was at the right time when it was the end of Dwapar Yuga and the beginning of Kali Yuga. Brahma, knowing which of the four parts of the Vedas were which, he divided them. No, that's a second explanation. It doesn't mean the first one. It's either the first one or the second one. They cancel each other out. It could be both. Does that respond to your question? Kind of.
And last thing is, I think, let me think about it. Yeah, the question you raised about Satya Yuga, how at the end of Kali Yuga,
Yeah. Yes.
and story back to Satya Yuga. I think
we went round and round about this. You remember?
Because I wasn't like, from my point of view, it's just at the end of Kali Yuga, everyone is kind of like man animal, and then Kalki descend and annihilate pretty much most of the population, and then at the end of at the beginning of the Satya Yuga is like the new thing is already so the bad thing has already been eliminated, and just the new things start to grow.
Yeah. In other words, or taking what you're saying and extending it a little bit, a function of the Saptarishis is they act like Prajapatis. That is, they create some praja, and that some praja are few in number, but such a yuga quality that they're produced by the Prajapatis or by the the um, the Saptarishis. They come from their realm. They come to this realm and serve in a capacity that helps bring such a yuga to flourish again. But it doesn't mean, so that's a function. How they do it was I didn't say what they did, but that's a method. And then Vyasa Deva isn't, out to lunch. Vyasa Deva has a function. He's guiding. And these Saptarishis have access to this Uttar Bhadri region that ordinary people don't have access to. They have access. So he's guiding them. And they're happy to take guidance from him. Now, the detail of all of that, in any research I've done, I haven't found any detail describing what happens at that particular junction of time and how do they move around and all of that. We do have an understanding. The Saptarishis, have different capacities to move around. For example, they have their planets and they have their place in the Himalayas. Those are two realms. The in space and on Earth, there's at least two places, and then one can find other places so they can move around. Is the point, and they do so for service, not for pleasure or sightseeing or something. They're service minded. They're serving the Supreme Lord. That's why there's Saptarishis. And as necessity calls, they do. So one of those is specifically this at the end of Kali Yuga, and the population is largely wiped out. Then you have to start over again. So they assist. Vyasa.
As Guru Maharaj, the point is Vyasa, we talk about Vyasa appeared between, like at the juncture of Dvapara Yuga and Kali Yuga, and then does that mean the roles carry over to the next Yuga?
But that's he appeared at that time, but he has his residence beyond that juncture of time. He's still existing. Others? He's residing in Uttar Bhadri. Like how Madhvacharya visited. And he went twice, and he received him twice. He's still there. Go ahead.
These strongly stated the scriptures, Vyasa and Purana are not misunderstood.
Right.
But at the same time, from the conclusion perspective, we do refer with both of the scripts. So, with the first, for the God. In Bhagavatam, we have all the time for God. So, how do we reconcile those? Are they the facts or?
Yeah. So I'm not sure what you're asking. You're not going by the life evolved from matter. that there's no difficulty. That can do all species have to evolve like Darwinism says? No, consciousness evolves, but not species evolves. We don't adhere to Darwinism, evolution of species. We don't adhere to that. A living entity, this is keeping it simple. Prabhupada refers to Padma Purana and says Darwin borrowed from Padma Purana. So, yes, there's evolution, but not evolution of species, evolution of consciousness through species. So that means that the departments of species are there, and then the living entity can move from this to that to the other species. But it's not that once upon a time there weren't those species, and then here's some species. A rabbit that boxes, and we call him a kangaroo. Okay. It's challenging for people who are used to a certain perspective or paradigm to adjust to the Vedic nonfiction and say, we can say Darwinian evolution is fiction, but not that species evolve is fiction, not that living entities move from one species to the next species to the next species. There's evolution in that sense, but the life forms are existing, and they may, according to nature's arrangement, move from one species to the next species, but the species are already existing. It has everything to do with as above, so below. In the spiritual world, there's everything. And this is the reflection of everything. So there's everything. Not evolved everything. It's existing from the very beginning. Now, Darwinian evolution picture is different. Once upon a time, the earth was covered with water, and all there was aquatics. And then some of the water evaporated, and then there was land. So then there's plants, and then there's that's Darwinian evolution. Okay, someone else. Yeah. Hey, nice to see you. You're hiding in the back, but apparently there's some people online, so they need to hear you. We can hear you.
Shukdev Goswami is saying that my guru, Srila Vyasadeva, rejected 4 other
Paila.
disciples.
That Paila and other students, because they had material, they couldn't understand the Bhagavatam. Vyasa wanted one not attached to matter to understand the Bhagavatam properly, so he gave it to me.
Right. What I'm not liking it to my mind, it's a strong statement saying, if I tell to some devotees here that my guru
Chose
picked
me.
me for this service and he rejected other disciples because I don't have material desire. It's from a Vaishnava etiquette principle. Shukdev Goswami is our. So I just want to understand a little bit more.
It's true. I mean, Vyas was he was very fussy or particular that he wanted a qualified and there wasn't a qualified. So when his son was born, he chased after him and he did this and that to get him to come back. But he wanted, because to understand and represent the Bhagavatam properly, it has to be someone without material affinity. Now, for someone to say that about themselves, it sounds self-serving. And that he rejected the others because they don't have my qualification. Sounds self-serving. But it's true. So sometimes truisms are spoken that it's not with the mentality of self-serving. It's glorifying the speaker and the subject matter of the speaker. And in such cases, that's my understanding at least. It's not self-glorification. It's an understanding of the subject matter and his father and the subject matter that his father wanted him to be the representative of. It's like Brahmaharshan Sutta. He got kusagrased by Balaram because he wasn't fit. So like, wow, and blood all over the place with the kusagrass. And Balaram said, if you like, I can bring him back. No, what he did is okay. What to do now? His son. So, the extreme behaviors or speech can be indicative of how important this subject matter or topic is. Now, the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is everyone is eligible, and Prabhupada would say it over and 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 over. It doesn't matter. And who's the qualified speaker? Who's the Shukadev Goswami amongst us? But that's the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, engaging us in that way. From the get-go, there has to be someone that's going to present the teaching properly. Anyway, that's Shukadev Goswami's explanation, and at least one way how you, who feel some irritation that he's speaking that way about himself and against others that weren't as qualified as himself. It sounds self-serving. It's not nice. Not Vaishnava-like. One doesn't speak about oneself in those terms. A Vaishnava doesn't. So how's he qualified? So there are some examples like that in the scripture where it's not self-glorification, but it's glorification of the subject matter. You take it that way. Delicate question, huh? Okay. Anyone else? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.